Howdy guys, welcome back to BRG Photography. This is Ben, and I know it's been a while since my last video, but don't worry, I haven't forgotten about this channel. It's just been a combination of being busy and a little bit lazy. But I do have some upcoming videos in the works, starting with this one. Today we're going to be talking about the liquify tool. Not specifically how to use it, but more about things that you should be liquifying that you may not be thinking about when you're doing your retouching. So with that being said, let's jump right in. Okay guys, welcome back. What I want to do with this video is give you guys some things to think about when you're editing your photos and how to use the liquify tool subtly so that your liquefations go ideally unnoticed. Something I always aim for is for people, and especially even the model, to not even realize I liquefied anything. So let's go ahead and start with this image here, and I want to show you one of the first things that I like to use liquify for, and that is just to fix clothing that might be a bit ill-fitted or just has weird folds and bends in it. So here we have this shot, this model that I often work with, and she has a really nice tight-fitting dress, but you can see here in the back that just the way the clothes is kind of bent, I find it distracting, and all I want to do is just kind of tuck that in a little bit so it looks a bit nicer. So making sure that we are on an actual pixel layer, we can go up to the top left corner and go over to our liquify persona, and it brings us to the liquefaction or the liquify persona. Now, I personally like to have the blue mesh off. I just find it distracting. So all we're going to do is we're going to come over here, and just with our normal little push tool is we're just gonna push it in. Now I'm not gonna try to get it to be right up against her skin because that would look a bit awkward, because you know it's closed and it will have folds in it. So I think it's fine that it's not gonna be right up against her back. Maybe if this one bothers me a little bit, I can push this in, trying to be careful of the arm on the other side. There are ways to fix that, and we will show you, I'll show you that in another image. But here, yeah, I think just something like that is gonna look pretty nice. Let's go ahead and zoom out. And we can go back to 0%, and now we're at 100%. So you can see, like, it's very subtle. Let's go ahead and apply that. But it makes a difference. Like, just for me, this has a better flow to this kind of S curve down her lower back, as opposed to that curve kind of being interrupted with this kind of really bright reflected white triangle. So let's look at another image that has clothes fixes. So here's another image of another dress. And here we have two things I want to fix. One, just like the last image, I want to fix this fold in this dress. And two, I want to fix the zipper. It looks like the dress is not really fitted tight enough on her, and so the zipper is kind of like waving around and going different directions, and I just find it distracting. It makes it look like the dress is just not fitting her correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix that. So let's go ahead and make sure we have another pixel layer, and let's go to liquify persona. And the first thing I want to do is go ahead and push in using the push tool, and as you can see, it is grabbing her arm, but that is okay. We're going to fix that in a second. I just want to come over here and do something like that. So I think one of the telltale signs of bad liquify is when people are not paying attention to how liquify is affecting the rest of the image, and a lot of times it's going to affect the background, other parts of the body, and you have to be really aware of that. So here you can see that looks nicer. Now we have this weird stretch. So all we're going to do is go to our liquify reconstruct tool, and that's going to basically reconstruct how it used to look, and we're just going to go down the arm, and boom, just like that. And you can see we went from there to there. Now let's go on down to the zipper. Now this has to actually move quite a bit, maybe. So let's see, I'm kind of want to imagine the line coming down this way. So let's go ahead back to our push tool, and let's just try to push in a bit. Now this one's going to have a lot of movement, and there's a lot of detail in this dress, so we're going to see a lot of kind of stretched pixels, but I'm going to show you a way that we can kind of mitigate that and correct it. Okay, and so because I want to try to get the curve of the backside here, I don't want it to go straight down. I want to kind of have a little bit of curve. So let's actually push this way. Maybe push that. And I think liquify, you really do have to be a bit creative because you're basically reconstructing the shape of the clothes or someone's body, and you're hopefully trying to do it in a realistic manner. Now, of course, this is a zipper, so I shouldn't expect it to be perfectly straight, but I think that looks definitely a lot better than it did when it was waving around. Let's zoom out. Yeah, I think that definitely looks better. Just that you can see it looks like the dress just fits a lot nicer when the zipper and all that is straight. So let's go ahead and apply that. Now, if we are really nitpicky, we can come over here and we can see that we have some really classic like liquify artifacts where things get really stretched out. So what we could have done is, just like before, we could have reconstructed it, but I want to show you a different way. One way you could do it is just make a mask on that new liquify layer, and using a black paintbrush, we can come over here and kind of undo our liquify correction. I'm going to hover, by hovering the mouse over, I can kind of see where the zipper used to be. So I'm going to come back to about here and just kind of repaint this, because you can see it did actually quite affected a lot of the dress. And I want to just make sure that, so something about like so, and I think even down here things got a bit wonky. You can see like that jewel's kind of been doubled up a little bit. You can see that got stretched out a bit, but we can kind of come over here and do things like that. So using this mask is great, and masks are always good just because you can, if you go too far and mess up, you can switch over to a white brush and paint your correction back in. Like you can see here, it's kind of doubled up a little bit. We can kind of fix that, maybe do something like that. And as you can see, just by doing that, we've actually made a pretty big difference. We've kind of cleaned that up. And if we wanted to clean it up even more, if I can find a good example somewhere, like maybe here where we kind of see it gets a bit blurry, we can just come over here with a new layer and clone stamp set to current layer and below, and maybe just find somewhere else, like maybe here, perhaps. Let's see, something that's going to look about what I think that should look like. Maybe grab like something here, and then we could just, you know, paint over those kind of that blurriness that we had, and that will kind of correct. Maybe just like grabbing the dress part here and kind of repainting that. And so you can see, like, just like that, we're able to really do a good job of kind of hiding, you know, our corrections. And I think that's the best way to really do your liquify, is to just hide your corrections. I can see here, if I want to paint on this mask, I can see here that these pixels look stretched out. They really got stretched out quite a bit. So we can come over here and just try to like do our best to like fix them so they look a little bit more natural. Again, it's really important to look at your image as on a per image basis, because even at this distance, you know, you're not really paying attention to the small details of the dress. And by the time you're looking at it on Instagram like that, you're not going to see all these corrections I'm making. So a lot of times I won't spend too much time doing that, but I could come over here, these double sequins over here, and just kind of maybe clone stamp one out. So I think good liquify is a combination of liquify and other tools like masking and dodging and burning to get your corrections looking really, really basically unnoticed. Okay, let's move on to something that deals more with skin. So in this image, I have another model, and when I did this shoot, I kind of wanted to have something where I had more head and shoulders. I wanted to see her collarbone and the top of her chest a little bit. And so all she did was basically pull her shirt down, which normally had a collar that went maybe around here. And she just pulled her shirt down over her arms. But because the shirt collar is so tight, it's kind of pinching her arms here, and it's causing this like skin to kind of like bulge out. And so this is a great example of how we can use liquify to correct something that normally is not like that. So working on a brand new pixel layer, or a copied pixel layer, I should say, all I'm going to do here is just bring that in. Now, so far we've only been using the liquify push forward tool, but I want to show you the other tool which I often use is a liquify push left. And this is kind of nice because all you have to do is just basically kind of start at the edge of where you want to go and just kind of come down, and it just kind of pushes everything to the left. Now if you go the other way, so when I want to do the other side, if I go down, it actually still pulls everything to the left, so you actually have to go up this way. So we go up like so, and the closer you are to what you want to move, the further it moves. The further away, you can kind of get a nice like subtle effect like that. And as you can see, we just kind of made a correction, which, you know, wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't for her pulling her shirt down her arms and her really tightly collared shirt. So there you can see like we've just made, and maybe I went a bit too skinny on that arm there. I just want to just a little more like so. And I think that looks fantastic. Yeah, and I think what's most important is that goes unnoticed. Like you would not notice that because it's not how she really looks all the time. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. So now I want to show you another example of fixing something on the body that, you know, again, is caused by the position of the model and not necessarily how she looks. So here's another great shot, but you can see here on her left arm, because she's pressing her arm against her body, it's causing this kind of like bicep bulge, which shouldn't be there. We can look at her other arm and see she's actually quite thin. But again, just because the way she's posing, and I often try to remind models, like if they're going to be posing something like this, like don't press their body or don't press their arm against their body too much, because it does things like this and it can make the arm look wider than it really is. So all we're going to do here is the same thing. We're going to go into liquify, and this time, let's see, let's just try a little bit of both. So we're going to do that push to the left. So we're going to start maybe around here and just kind of go down. Now, as you see, it's going to really heavily affect the background. But as we saw, like I did earlier, we can fix that with a combination of reconstructing or masking. So let's do something like that. Maybe could probably go skinnier. And again, I don't want to say like skinnier, like making her skinnier. It's more about just kind of evening out the arms so that, you know, it's not, it shouldn't, because of the way it's pressed against her body. You know, maybe I'm going to keep that side. I think this side looks fine. Let's just do that top bicep. Okay, that looks fine to me. All right, let's go ahead and apply that. And obviously we have this really crazy thing with her hair. So we're going to make a mask, and then just using a black paintbrush, let's go ahead and just paint back the way it used to look. And we can paint right up to where her arm used to be. And if we go a little bit like that, so you can see right there is where we've hit her arm. And then we can correct that just by going and doing some clone stamping, and maybe just, you know, clone stamping here so that we're just kind of rebuilding this part of her shirt. And you can take as much time as you want to on this. I'm not going to spend too much time to get it looking perfect, because I think you know what I'm trying to do. You know what the goal is here, is just getting that clean so that our liquify goes unnoticed. There we go. Alrighty, and so just like that, you know, we've got her arm looking a bit more natural, and we've also corrected things in the background. Perfect. All right, so let's do one more example of correcting the body. Not because there's something wrong with it, but because the way the pose has made it look a bit awkward. So here we have that first model from the first shot, and we can see she's very slim and she's in fantastic shape. But because of the way she's posed here, all of her weight's like down on her shoulder, and her shoulder is up, and her arms pressed against her body, that it just makes her shoulder and her upper arm just look a lot bigger than it really is. When you compare it to this one, you can see her arm is quite toned. There's muscle there, but it's not this big bulking shoulder. So all we're going to do is we need to fix that. Another thing I want to fix too is I think also because of the way she's angled her chin down and her face, and she's leaned back, it just makes her face look a lot wider than it really is. If we compare it to this shot, which is kind of a very similar angle as far as the face goes, her face just looks a lot thinner here, where here her face looks a lot wider. This could be a combination of her being close to the edge of the frame. Maybe there's some lens distortion, but I think it's just kind of the weight, the way she's posed. It just doesn't look how I think she really looks. So that's what I'm trying to do, is basically fix something to make it look more what I see in real life. And so here we're just going to do quite a bit of pushing in to fix this arm. Now, as you can see, it is kind of messing up the background, but you know, later, eventually I would edit this background and clean up that seamless to get rid of those wrinkles and stuff there. Let's see. Yeah, one thing I got to be careful of, or you have to be careful of when you're doing the push-in, is if you start going a bit too small, it's really easy to kind of like get like weird little, like that, like little dimples, like you're not, it doesn't look real. So it's actually, you can see I messed up here a bit. So what I want to do is try to keep my brushes pretty big, so that way when I'm pushing a wide area, and it's going to keep things looking a bit more natural, as opposed to like doing a lot of tiny little brushes where it's easy to get things looking funny. Okay, let's see if that looks a little bit better. I mean, that's quite a huge difference. I mean, that's a really big difference. And if we want to come over here and do something to that face here, I'm going to have to get a really big brush and just kind of grab like kind of near the ear and just a little bit push in the face, so we're not seeing so much of that side, and just makes her face look a lot wider. Then I know for a fact that it's not that wide. So you can see just that little bit almost makes the image look a lot more balanced and more realistic, I think. If we compare this face to this face, like this looks more similar. When we go back to, then we go back to this one, it just looks like so much wider. And again, that's a combination of maybe the lens angle, edge of the frame, posing. So liquify is a really great way just to kind of fix that. Now you can see like we did push in her eye a little bit, but I think it's, you know, I think it's fine. If we really wanted to, we could reconstruct the eye with the reconstruct brush just to make sure that the eye and the eyebrow didn't get pushed in as well. So let's go ahead and apply that. And yeah, I mean, I think that just looks a lot nicer. It brings a lot more balance to her body, her upper body, her shoulder, and the whole image as a whole. Now, let me go ahead and show you one more thing that I like to do. And this is actually where you're going to be kind of changing the expression a little bit and liquefying the eyes. So this is a really beautiful image, but I just feel like maybe the way she posed at this particular shot, her eyes just kind of look a bit too big for me. And I want to make her eyes just a little bit smaller. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just go ahead and merge layers again, and we're going to go to liquify. And what we're going to do here is just kind of push her eyes in to make them a little bit smaller, get a little bit more like that sultry, you know, look where the eyes are almost a little bit closed. Now, when you do that, you notice that the eyeball on the inside starts to get a little bit oddly shaped because we're basically pushing it and squeezing it in. But that's okay. And maybe we can actually bring these down a little bit too. Just going to give more of like a sultry kind of, maybe they call them like bedroom eyes kind of look. I think it's going to look really good for this particular image. Okay. So there you go. I like the eyes here, but as you can see, the eyeballs just look really weird. So all we're going to do is apply that, and we can go to our trusty mask with a black paintbrush, and we can paint in or paint back. Oops, let's paint with black. I can paint back in the eyeball and just go right up to the edge of where we moved the eye underneath. And so something like that. And then same thing here. That way the eyeball stays the same shape, but the eyes just moved a little bit. And see there, I think here's Very interesting, right? This is something that's super subtle, looks natural, but it's a great way to kind of add a little bit of like extra mood to your images. Like this, I think this works really good. It's got more that kind of like sultry look. Maybe if I wanted to, this one looks a little bit uneven. I could come back here and push that eye in a little bit. But that's another great way to use liquify. And one final example is hair. I mean, I think using liquify to kind of boost up the volume in your hair is a really great way to just make the hair look more fuller. So going back to the same layer with my mask, just take your push tool and you can just kind of like grab the hair and just kind of bunch it up, pull it out a bit. Here I can see the hair fills. The hair looks a bit uneven on this side. So I want to kind of bring this out so it kind of has the same fullness as the left side. And then I can kind of bring the hair out a bit. And that's just going to give a bit more of a fuller look to the hair. I think that looks really good. So we'll save that. And you can see here, like, just those little subtle differences kind of add just a little bit of extra like touch. And again, this is just really quick. I could probably spend more time to make it look more precise. But if we're doing hair again, you know, we can do the same thing here. Just take our little brush and just kind of like, this one you can go a bit more extreme because it's the hair. People aren't going to be paying too close attention to it. And if it does get stretched out a little bit, it still looks actually pretty good. And you can see just by doing a little bit of hair like that, we just add some volume to the hair. We can do the same thing here. Let's go back to this layer and we can just add some volume. Just basically just add some volume to the hair. I think that always looks really nice. I think, you know, a lot of times for these shoots, you know, they want to have really big volume, like styled hair. And so just by doing something a little bit like that, subtle, but it adds a little bit of flair, I guess you could say, to it. Yeah, so those are a few examples of liquify that I think that you have a right to use, and I think that you should be doing these liquefations on your images and not so much worried about you know, making chests look bigger, or legs look longer, or hips look wider. You know, focus on the things that you need to actually correct with liquefaction. And sometimes that does involve making the person look more like they do in real life because of lighting or posing, that they just don't look like that in the photo. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's been a while. I'm going to try to get better about posting more frequently because I do have some really good ideas for videos coming up in the future. So please be on the lookout for that. Thank you guys for always subscribing and commenting, and I hope this video helped you out. And I guess until the next one, I will see you later, and just go ahead and keep on retouching. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Bye.